2 of the Edgenuity lesson, equation of a circle. So down here, I've written out what an equation of a circle looks like. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So the h, k, and r, when we write out an equation of a circle, will have numbers. X and y will stay x and y. So if I had like x minus 3 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 25. The center of the circle, so to find that ordered pair, you kind of write down the opposite. So if this is x minus 3, you would write down that the x-coordinate is a positive 3. So you kind of are doing the opposite sign of what's inside the parentheses. And then the y plus 4, the opposite of that would be a negative 4. So the center of this circle is at 3, negative 4. Now when you identify the radius, a lot of people look at that and say, oh, the radius is 25. But remember, this is the radius squared. So the radius squared is 25, and if we square root both sides, we'll get that r by itself is 5. So opposite of the insides, and then this is always the radius squared. So at the very end of the video, what they did was they took the equation of the circle in general form and put it into standard form. So I'm going to go ahead and break that down a little bit slower than what he does on the video. So the first thing you have to do when you complete the square is we have to get anything that's a constant, so it has no variable attached to it, it needs to get over on the other side of the equal sign. We don't want it. We also need to get the x's next to each other and the y's next to each other. So I'm going to change up the way the order here. I'm going to say that this is x squared, and then I'm going to pull over the positive 4x. Plus, and then y squared, I'm going to group that with the negative 8y, and at the same time I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. Okay, so now what we have to do is complete the square, like I said. So what we want is we want it to be something like this. 2 perfect squares, where it's something squared plus something squared. So what you're going to do is here, you're going to identify what the number is in front of the plane variable, the variable that's not squared, so this 4. And if we were writing a quadratic equation, that would be b. You remember ax squared plus bx plus c. So we take b, this is what you're going to do every time, and you're going to divide it by 2. And then you're going to take what you got in this step, that b divided by 2 answer, and you're going to square it. So we got 2 when we did b divided by 2, so if I square that, that gives me 4. Now, this tells me what I need to add on here so that this can be a perfect square. But you can't just add 4 into an equation. It will make it unbalanced. So whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And I just messed that up because I wrote equals 0 instead of equals negative 11. So let me fix that. Okay, so for this to be a perfect square, I'm going to have to add 4 onto it. Whatever I do on the left, I have to do on the right. So I'm going to have to add on a 4. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this middle step because it's going to help us in a minute. Okay, so now let's do the same thing with the y's. We're going to identify what's b, so the number in front of the plane y, negative 8. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take b and I'm going to divide it by 2 to get negative 4. Then we're going to take what we got in the last step, that b divided by 2, and I'm going to square it. So negative 4 squared is a positive 16. Okay, so whatever I add on here, I got to add on over here. So I've changed this to a positive, or add on a positive 16. So I also have to add a 16 over on the right. Okay, so let me write it out now. Hopefully I have enough room. Oh, and sorry, let me go ahead and highlight this middle step because it's going to help us in a minute. And then here we have y squared minus 8y, and we added on a 16. And then over on the right, we had negative 11 plus 16, which gives us 9. Okay, so now we have perfect squares here. We just got to write them so that they look like this. So when you're writing them as something squared plus something squared equals 9, whatever you got in that b divided by 2 step, that's what you're going to put in the parentheses. So this starts with an x, this starts with a y. When we did b divided by 2, I got a positive 2. So this will factor into x plus 2, that quantity squared. Over here, when we did b divided by 2, we got negative 4. So that's what I'm going to put in here, negative 4. So that is the equation of that circle. The question says find the center and the radius. So the center is the ordered pair opposite, opposite, negative 2, 4. The radius, remember this is the radius squared. So if r squared equals 9, then r on its own, if you square root both sides, we would get 3. Okay, so now let's do this one. So remember, first we're going to group up our x's. So the minus 12x is going to come next. Group up the y's. So y squared minus 2y. And then any constants, you need to get them on the other side. You need to undo them. So the opposite of adding 12 is subtracting 12. 0 minus 12 is negative 12. Okay, so let's work on completing this square. B is negative 12, the number in front of the plane x. So from there, we're going to take b and we're going to divide it by 2. And then this is what we're going to put the parentheses at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. And then the last thing we do is we take b divided by 2, and we're going to square it. So I'm going to take the negative 6 and square it to get a positive 36. So that means I'm going to add 36 here. Whatever you do on the left, you got to do on the right. Okay, so now let's figure it out for this perfect square. We're going to take b. We're going to divide it by 2. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Then we're going to take what we got in that step and we're going to square it. So I got negative 1. I'm going to square that. That's a positive 1. Highlight this because it's going to help us when we write our perfect squares. Okay, so this tells me I need to add 1 onto here to make it a perfect square. Whatever I do on the left, I got to do on the right. So now we have x squared minus 12x plus 36 plus y squared minus 2y plus 1 equals, and then over here on the right, we're going to have to do negative 12 plus 36, which is 24, plus 1 is 25. So the reason we did that is because we want something squared plus something squared equals 25. So this goes to the x's, and this one goes to the y's. So when you factor this, what it's going to factor into is whatever you got here in this b divided by 2. So I got negative 6, so this is going to be x minus 6. This one, I got negative 1, so this is going to be y minus 1. So the center of this one, opposite, opposite. This is r squared. So if r squared is 25, r on its own would be 5.